Well, Julia Cornea, right? And you're the founder and chief bottle washer and inventor of a website called Kadisha Kadisha.org, because you're a nonprofit, right? That really helps people in underdeveloped countries really become entrepreneurs, for very
Yes.
little money. Like you could send $100 to, someone in Benin and they could have a thriving business. And all it takes is that, doesn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's
so,
right.
so tell us how can we help you do this? I mean, it sounds like and we get the money back. So it's a lending program, and instead of going through some NGO that's going to charge big overhead and everything, you've cut out all the middlemen and make it better than anybody else is doing anything like this out there, right?
Yes, Zidisha was the first in the world to apply a direct person-to-person lending model internationally.
Wow.
So you're connecting directly to a person in Africa or Asia, and you can finance their business.
Wow. So now, I mean, there's similar kind of groups trying to do the same thing, but the overhead, because they have large organizations or banks involved and things like this, that the poor people trying to get $100 may cost them $35 to get the $100, right?
Yes, worldwide, the average interest rate paid for these small microloans is about 40%.
The average interest rate is 40% on a microloan.
Yes.
Wow. That's like the mafia.
Even at Kiva, when you're financing the loans at zero interest, the end borrowers are paying an average of 35%.
So on Kiva, an end borrower, and that's another NGO kind of thing that is helping people in underdeveloped countries be entrepreneurs, and they're paying 35% on Kiva. Wow. And there's no interest in a way. That's just like middleman fees, huh?
Yes, those are that's what it costs to administer traditional loans with loan officers on the ground. Traditional
Wow.
microfinance is really expensive.
I see. So now you've done it like peer to peer. So I go on your website and I see, the woman or the guy or whoever wants a little cell phone company or was selling cell phones that I could, looking for $300. I almost talk to him directly, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and we could communicate directly right on your website to the person getting the money. But then the money seems to go through a bank also. Is that correct?
No, we
No?
bypass all local banks, and so you're connecting directly to the
To
borrower. You
that. Oh,
dialogue and talk to them directly. The money is
wow.
sent directly to them, and no bank intermediary is involved in the
No
process.
bank. So how many, if there's no banks involved, so you just electronically, he gets the money on his cell phone or his bank account or something like that, or what?
Yes, we
Yeah.
for most of the loans we actually use mobile phone-based payment services, which means we can
Ah.
electronically send money to the cell phone of a nomad in Africa. In fact, a
What?
nomad in Kenya who lived over a day's journey from any bank received our first Zidisha loan. It was all,
Wow. So a nomad in Africa could get his money on his cell phone, and I can't even do that here in Kensington, Maryland.
yes,
That's wonderful. So electronically you do that through systems like they have in these underdeveloped countries because people have cell phones and nothing else, right? So they're
yes.
able to get this money. But more importantly, I mean, you got 7,000 projects that you've already financed, worth over $2 million. Man, we going to get rid of the World Bank now because of you, or what?
Yes, we're it's really exciting because our loans cost so much less to the borrower, but the lenders can still earn interest, and that's because we get rid
Ah,
of the intermediaries.
what? Now, how much turns bad? Do you have a feel for that yet, or what?
We estimate a repayment rate of about 90 to 95% for loans currently being made.
Wow, 95%. But all the loans are not very big, so it's not a big individual loss. I mean, that sounds like the SBA loans is worse than that.
In fact, you can lend as little as $1 to each loan, so it's very easy to diversify.
Wow, London. And then you also have groups, what is great on your site. You have groups of people that get together. I mean, some of these groups, like alumni associations, or you have an atheist group, and all kinds of affiliated people, or people like who traveled to underdeveloped countries before and thought it was neat when they saw poverty to try to help them as a group. And they're contributing hundreds of thousands of dollars by just organizing themselves together.
Yes, and often the amount per person is very small.
Right, that's what I mean. So, but you group it together, man, and you're really making an effect on it. I mean, you sending $100,000 to a village in Africa, man. That must be a real game changer in town.
And
yeah.
$1 or $100 loan in Africa goes so much farther than the same amount in the United States.
Wow.
For the cost of a nice dinner in New York, you could start an entire restaurant in Kenya.
Ah, that's interesting. The cost of dinner in New York, I could start a restaurant in Kenya. Oh, that's amazing. I think about my zip code here. People who are getting Social Securities, millionaire lawyers are getting Social Security, a month or like $2,500. Man, a kid could go to college for that, and it's 3 meals for them downtown at some fancy restaurant.
Speaking of college, many of our borrowers are actually university students, and they're either supporting themselves with small business to put themselves through school, or they're actually paying their tuition with a $200 loan.
So it's better than the gangsters here in this country are lending money. These banks, for student loans are terrible because what they've done to these people. So now you're able to put up this, and it's really peer-to-peer. An individual person lending money to an individual person, in a foreign country. It's not much money to any individual here, but it's so significant to their life there, right?
Yes.
Yeah. But what's interesting about your organization, more so than that you figured out a way to cut the cost by 30% or more, is that you run a lot on volunteers, so you have wonderful people that are helping you in this country, other countries or whatever, that see the need and the importance of what you're doing and are willing and able to volunteer their time just to help in any way, it seems.
Yes. Our organization is run by volunteers. I was a volunteer for years, and today I and one web developer are the only permanent staff members.
And everybody else is volunteer.
It's like Wikipedia in that respect. We have many people collaborating to build this organization.
But it also, I think, a volunteer for a group like this, to me, seems like you're developing a skill. I mean, God, where else can you get a skill in financial, interpersonal relationships, overseas development? I mean, learning about other countries. Man, what are you going to do? Work part-time as a barista somewhere where you could get experience like this? Man, is invaluable as a volunteer for you guys.
Yes, it's an invaluable experience for the volunteer, and it's a way to make a huge impact in the world.
Yeah, I mean, and to see what's going on in the world, and especially a place like Africa, man, they're supposed to double in size in the next 30 or 40 years or something like that, and they're going to be the next big player in this universe. And more of us have to learn about it. And not only are you helping us learn about it, but you're helping us help them grow efficiently, and it takes very little money to change a life there, and it's just wonderful what you're doing, and I'm so glad that we have someone like you doing this and educating the rest of us about how important this work is. And so if people want to help in any way, if you want to give $1, that's going to go a long way to help somebody start a business in the countries you're in, or just some of your time. You say like 2 hours a week is enough, right?
Yes.
To help. Well, that's wonderful. So you go to Zidisha, that's ZIDISHA.org. Don't go to .com, go to .org, right? Because you're not one of these fat cat banks lending money, because I see, all these big commercial banks are trying to get into this business. You know what's going to happen then. Yeah.
Yes.
It's going to be a lot more expensive than you guys are doing. Yeah. Yeah, well, thank you so much, Julia. Fun to have you there, and thanks for doing this work. And I hope people realize how important what you are doing is for everybody, not just yourselves when you give. That's why I think it's so selfish to give, because it feels so good. Thank you again, Julia.
Thank you.